Okay, cool. So in the last couple of videos, we talked about assistants, AI assistants, and threads, saving message threads for recall later. And under the hood, what Bear is using is a type of file called a rec file. Rec files are like databases, and but what's really interesting about these is that they are plain text. Right, it's just like a text file that you can edit yourself, right? When we were in here earlier, we were literally just coming in here and editing the records by hand, which is pretty handy, right? If you have a smaller kind of collection of records that you're working with, if you had like tens of thousands of records in here, maybe that would be a little overkill to ensure that it's plain text. But even then, right, you could kind of make a case for having plain text, right? If you, right, there are some databases that are file-based, like SQLite, and SQLite is great in many ways, but it's very opaque, right? You need some kind of SQLite interface to interface with it, right? You need some graphical user interface to browse your different tables. And with rec files, you don't need that. Now, it does come with that, so you can programmatically access your data, just like you can with SQLite and other SQL terminals. So here, let's just kind of take a look at this. What we're working with here, this assistance.rec file. One quick thing to know about rec files is you can either specify some stuff up at the top to get really clear about what it is these records are, like what are they, what are you going to refer to them as, what mandatory fields are there, and then you can specify field types and more. But you can also just literally just have a you can just have that, right? This is also a valid rec file. It's just using anonymous records. That's what those are called whenever you don't specify what they are. So if I say something like rec cell, right? So that's record select. We're selecting these records. Where are we selecting them from? .var/assistance, right? That's where we are. And let's just press enter, right? So that's going to give us the output of what it is we're working with, right? Now, you can select only a number of them. So I'll say number 1, right? So that's just going to pick the first one right there. And actually, that's number 1. It's 0 base. So if I say 0, right, it's going to pick the top one. Now, I can also say 0 through 1, right? And that's going to bring both of them in. Right. You can also say an expression. So you can express, where the name equals dog. Notice how I put dog in a single quote there. Right. That's only going to return the one that has dog as the title. So that's really handy. Now with Bear, we have some special tools where we can convert the record files that we're getting back here as a response, and we can convert those into other formats by piping it. So this is, in Bash, you can pipe things along and create these little pipelines. So I'm going to say, take that response that we just got. Right? There's that response. If I were to press enter, right, I'd get that response. But we're not going to print that to the console. We're just going to pipe it along. We're going to pipe that response along to a special Bear script called rec, and we're going to say --CSV, right? And what that's going to do is create a CSV out of it, right? Now, if I say --JSON, it's going to take that and put it into a JSON array. Pretty handy in some circumstances. What about inserting a record, right? If you wanted to write a program that would programmatically insert some data, right? So let's do that with these assistants. Let's say recins, so that's record insert, right? And let's say recins, and we're going to specify the assistance file. And because we're not working with any named assistant type, right? We don't have to specify the type. These are just anonymous records. We'll say the field of name, we're going to give the value of my new assistant. Notice I'm putting that in quotes, right, because it's in multiple words. For the field of contents, right, we're going to say, here is my new assistant and the instructions, right? Now if I press enter, please provide, a value, right? I didn't specify a value, right? For each field, we give a value. So for this field, I didn't give a value. So I need to say -v, right? So there we go. Now it created another record. So there's that new record there, right? I can delete records by doing recdel, right? So let's delete where, and so you give it an expression. You say where the title, or where the name, rather, equals my new assistant, right? And then that will get rid of that. And let's go ahead and get rid of my assistant as well. Very cool. Yeah, so that's some basics. Let's go into one more detail. Let's put back our declarations up here at the top. So and go over it a little bit. So you can specify multiple record types within a single rec file. So if you have, this is handy if you want to just store everything inside of one rec file, but it's also handy if you want to have collections of related things, like maybe people and accounts that they belong to, or maybe people and accounts and teachers. Maybe you want to link teachers and people together somehow. You can do that by specifying the type, right? If I wanted to specify a new type, I would come here after all of my recs, and I would say rec, and let's just create people, right? So, and mandatory field here. Mandatory field is going to be first name, and just do capital letter. And we should also make last name mandatory too. These are case sensitive too, so if, like this is a different field than that, so you can, mess yourself up there if you're not careful. Yeah, and then we can create some records. Let's save that, and we'll do recins. Now, if I say assistants and I insert the field of first name and the value of Matthew, and the field of last name, and the value of Larkin, right? What do you think it's going to do here? If I just press enter, it did not put it underneath the people, right? Because we didn't specify a type, right? Now we're working with multiple types of records here. So it just inserted it as a, arbitrary, ambiguous, anonymous record here at the very top, right? We don't want that. We want it to put it in the people. So make sure that when you're working with types and you've specified the type of a record, that you're going to specify the actual type. And I'm going to make this single case. So the type that we're working with is person. Right. Now when we insert, it's going to put it right here inside the person, that context. So yeah, cool. That's how we do that. If you ever need to like add more fields down the road, you can just do that. Let's say middle name, right? Or let's say let's make it more realistic. Occupation, right? Field of occupation and value of developer. And I haven't put any constraints, so technically it's going to let me add another person named Matthew Larkin here. Oh, I didn't specify the type. Type is person. But notice how we have this new field here. Now, if we were to make mandatory occupation, right, it would kind of squawk at us because we have some fields that don't have occupation. So if you do add new fields down the road, you just have to make sure that all of them have that field. So this is why it's kind of better for smaller data sets, right, where you are realistically able to modify and tend to it to keep it nice and organized. But yeah, that's recfiles. Recfiles are pretty cool, and we're going to be using them inside of Bare to make things simple to edit, flexible, and this way too you can kind of store your own data sets outside of the Bare, immediate, tool context, right? You can kind of you can just store your own documents and store your own records. And then make use of them within Bare scripts, which we should talk about in the next video.